I'd like to explore your relationship with the media today in a crisis situation. Today, of course, we live with the threat of a myriad of possible crises: chemical, nuclear, electronic, terrorist, activist-led incidents. There's floods, there's fires, there's earthquakes, there's volcanic eruptions, environmental catastrophes, many of which are out of our control to prevent. Then there's the crises which result from the direct criticism to our businesses or organisation. Maybe prosecutions under the Trade Descriptions Act, the Consumer Act, or possibly various libelling laws as well. They can all lead to highly negative and widespread media coverage. Investigative journalism is a third source of potential threat, and exposés can be highly damaging. Many businesses and companies have been pilloried for producing inflammable clothes and furniture, dangerous children's cots and pushchairs, dubious health treatments, and holiday companies and so-called rogue tradesmen remain a favourite target of the media. So what's around the corner? Unfortunately, the list doesn't end there. Many of the scenarios that your business could face and which could attract the interest of the media are as follows. Industrial action, maybe. The day when you have to announce widespread redundancies. Media keep a keen interest on your profit and loss margins. So what happens when you have a substantial drop in profits when you've got a high profile? There's always the sex scandals, and don't think it won't happen at your business. It happens everywhere. Allegations of discrimination, whether it be on the grounds of race, age, sex or religion. Perhaps you're planning to move your operations overseas with all the implications and possible negative publicity that brings. Then there's lawsuits. There's the disgruntled employee who now turns whistleblower. And two words which tend to strike fear into most companies, the product recall. So given the number of potential disasters which may strike our company any time, it's a wonder perhaps we have the courage to get out of bed in the morning. But then, of course, we do reassure ourselves with the thought that it won't happen to us, as we've heard already. Too often crises occur through bad management, but today, in today's world, the stakes couldn't be higher. There's a very real risk of destroying large numbers of people. Let's take the Costa Concordia cruise liner as a case in point. Or we could destroy whole communities, or even the planet. Look at the BP disaster a couple of years ago. It's sometimes said that the causes of disaster vary between two extremes: casual optimism and selfish greed. And in some cases, downright corruption is the key to it all. At other times, it may simply be a case of human fallibility. We all mess up sometimes after all. In some instances, the crisis is largely out of our control. But one area where we can take control is in planning and preparing for challenging times. Plan thoroughly, and you face the best possible chance of emerging from the crisis with your business and your reputation intact. So, as you've heard already, ensure you develop a crisis management plan, but make sure within that you include a section on dealing with the media. Many organisations prepare for crisis by drawing up a list of possible scenarios that may affect their business. These are usually divided into likely scenarios and unlikely scenarios. So a likely crisis might be a product recall, whereas an unlikely crisis might be a terrorist attack. But in either case, it's important to draw up plans for how you deal with these scenarios and how you deal with the media interest that accompanies it. Think about who would speak to the media from your organisation and whether they're equipped to do so. What they would say, and importantly, how your organisation would ensure you're speaking with one consistent voice. So crisis communications is a broad area and covers many, many disciplines and activities, but one aspect likely to fill company bosses and senior managers with dread really is the prospect of giving TV and radio interviews when their business is under fire. However, a strong interview on TV or radio can go a long way to reassure your customers, the public, the rest of the media, your investors, your shareholders and regulatory bodies that take an interest in you. You can reassure them that you're taking the problem seriously. You have the situation under control, no matter how grave it is. So with a colleague, I regularly run training sessions for companies in which we put them through their paces. We do half days and full days on this. We share some of the tricks of the trade and analyse the effectiveness and likely impact of their performance. We haven't got half a day or a day to devote to this today, but I thought I'd give you, in the time available, a few tips on how to build your confidence and your skills to enable you to give a memorable and compelling TV or radio interview should you find yourself in a crisis. These tips are particularly geared to a crisis situation, but they kind of apply equally to a situation which is more positive when you want to use the media to promote your business or your particular service. So, defining a core message. When we communicate, we convey a message, and the art of good communication is conveying the right message in the right way at the right time to the right audience. A message can always be distilled down to its most important, precise detail that we want to communicate. And so your job as a media spokesperson, when it happens, is to ensure that the soundbite you use on TV or radio matches your core message. So depending on the length of the media item on television or radio, it could range from 10 seconds for a commercial station to 3 or 4 minutes to a live interview. You'll need to have a maximum of 1 core message and 2 supporting messages. Think about the nature also of the audience and the receptiveness. Someone with half an ear on the radio breakfast show while negotiating the traffic on the M6 may remember 1 key point from your interview but nothing more. So make it well, make it compelling. So how do you go about identifying and refining a core message? Well, a quick trick here is to write down all the possible information that you think may be important to the subject you're talking about. Then begin to discard what you consider to be the less important, one by one. Eventually that gives you 1 item. This is your core message. The process of elimination should also help you define your 2 supporting messages as well, should you need them and should you have the time. Then you need to keep it really simple. Your work might be in a complex field. It might be very scientific, and scientists struggle with this. But you're talking about a message which is simple and comprehensible to the outside world. A useful technique here is to imagine you're talking to a very bright 11-year-old child. Focus on how you'd explain the message to them in a way they'd appreciate it and immediately understand it, so that it's free of jargon, acronyms and industry-specific terms. Then the next stage is to make it memorable. Try to use words and phrases that are memorable. Aim to paint a picture that will stay longer in the audience's minds. I've put here, make it newsy. Now, if you're the subject of a crisis situation, you're in the news already, so you don't need to worry too much about that. If you're in a more promotional situation where you're pushing your business or service, you need to finely tune your message to give it a news angle. So something needs to be new, something needs to be innovative, quirky, interesting, or highly original. Dog barks or man does job isn't interesting, I'm afraid. Man does job for 70 years is. A man gets award for doing job for 70 years and gets a gong. Bruce Forsyth, for example, is obviously a story. Then we need to make it relevant. The best communicators think carefully about the audience they'll be addressing and the likely impact the message will have. So consider the type of person who's going to be listening and tailor your message accordingly. So a mid-morning TV show is likely to have a very different audience from a late-night news show. So think about who's receiving it and how it will go down with them. Then, sincerity. The French novelist and dramatist Jean Giraudoux famously said, "The secret of success is sincerity. Once you can fake that, you've got it made." But perhaps we should be striving to be sincerely sincere in the first place. So really, you will not be believed unless you're sincere. You need to believe what you're saying, or your performance will appear fake. Then we need to bring our killer facts to life. We need to avoid over-reliance on statistics and measurements, but 1 or 2 astonishing figures can bring an interview to life, especially if they're delivered in a memorable way. Your voice is unique to you. No one else sounds exactly like you do, but your message won't have the impact you won't if it's delivered in very hesitant tones. You need to aim to sound clear, sound confident and authoritative, but also friendly. And in this way, your words will carry far more weight. Can I just ask, are there any singers in the audience? Yeah, okay, well, you'll know all about this. This is about breathing. Learn to breathe properly, and learning to breathe properly is a key aspect of relaxing before an interview. It'll also help you speak during the interview with confidence and authority. Interviewees who do not breathe deeply only use the top section of their lungs, so this makes your voice thin and lacking in authority. Eventually the voice goes higher and higher and higher, and you end up speaking like Minnie Mouse. It lacks the authority. So breathe in deeply through your nose and out through your mouth. Do this 5 times before an interview, and a sense of calm will begin to descend over you, and the world will seem a better place. And continue to breathe in this way during the interview, and your message will carry much further. Speaking slowly and with pauses is also important. There's a natural tendency for us to speak too fast because we're experiencing an adrenaline rush, but be conscious of this and slow yourself down. If you concentrate on speaking really slowly, you'll probably be talking at a normal rate. Pausing occasionally allows your words to sink in with the audience and gives you that vital thinking time. Also look at alternating the pitch of your voice to maintain maximum interest. So, we've all agreed really, I think, that the voice is important. We can't do much without it. But do we look after it? Be honest. Most of us drink or smoke or do both. And occasionally we shout at our kids or our partners. It's not for me to tell you how to live your life, but try and avoid doing these things before a media interview. Shouting will strain your voice. Smoking will tire your lungs. Alcohol and caffeine will both dehydrate you and affect the clarity of your voice. And alcohol has other effects which I don't need to go into. Avoid your chilled water as well, or water with ice, as it can give your voice a bit of a shock before you go on air. If you're carrying out an early morning interview, remember to warm up your voice beforehand as well. Avoid that situation that you sometimes get and sometimes hear, where the first words of the interviewee are lost in a fit of coughing and throat clearing. That's probably because they haven't spoken to anybody before they've spoken to the journalist that morning. A simple thing, but worth remembering. Whether we like it or not, we judge people by their appearances. In an interview situation, how we dress, how we stand and how we move all contribute to how sincere and trustworthy we're viewed. So first impressions count. Your appearance can also affect how you feel and whether you deliver a confident performance. And interestingly, this applies to the radio interviews as well as it does to TV. So the thrown out of bed look for breakfast radio will not only affect how comfortable and alert you feel, it'll also influence the way the presenter treats you. You're speaking as a business professional. There's an expectation that your attire will match your professional status. However, let it be said that if in your spare time you're an eco-warrior and you're asked to give an interview, you might want to leave the pinstripe suit at home. So clothing, wear something comfortable. Wear nothing new for the first time. Avoid wearing new shoes and wear something neutral that doesn't detract from your message, unless you're Lady Gaga. Avoid stripes as TV hates them. Keep your hair neat and tidy. Keep your jewellery subtle. And the old thorny issue of makeup. We could debate this for hours, couldn't we? And blokes get very, very sensitive about this. But whether you're male or female, accept the offer of makeup when you go to a TV studio. This isn't about vanity. It's actually about ensuring you look normal. The bright lights of TV will be unforgiving to anyone without makeup. It magnifies all their imperfections, it casts shadows, and most importantly, it makes them look very washed out and unwell. So even if you're dark-skinned, makeup is a good idea to deal with any shine resulting from the TV lights. So accept makeup, that's my advice to you. Avoid wearing glasses unless you have to. And try not to wear sunglasses at all unless you're a rock star or a rapper. And stop fidgeting. Not you now, but in the interview. Okay. Another heated topic of debate is body language. We all know that body language is important in sending out non-verbal messages. And some behavioural scientists actually suggest that in a presentation or in an interview, the body language accounts for 93% of the importance and the 7% accounts for the content. But I'd like to think, call me old-fashioned, that if I was standing in front of you now and trying to be compelling and putting my presentation across in a dynamic way, but reading out the telephone directory, that somebody would actually notice. So let's look at content, but let's also appreciate the importance of body language as well. So your posture can help you come across as relaxed and confident, or it can make you come across as uncomfortable or even hostile. Leaning back in your chair, arms folded, looking down your nose at an interviewer, sends out a powerful and very unhelpful message of how you feel towards him or her. Whereas leaning forward, Looking interested, hands clasped together, keeping eye contact throughout. That creates a completely different image. In determining your posture, you're aiming for polite attention, no matter how boring the situation is and how much of an idiot you think the person is who's interviewing you. So be careful not to let your body language give you away, especially if the interviewer challenges you on a question. It's their job to do that, I'm afraid. It's their job to ask the sort of questions that viewers or listeners might pose to you. So you need to avoid the reactions such as turning away, or as we've said before, crossing your legs or folding your arms. Treat that interviewer with respect and in a professional manner, no matter what you think of them. Some of our gestures are important in conveying openness and honesty, and politicians are well versed in this and well trained in this. Nodding in agreement is a good idea once in a while. Don't overdo it. You look like a nodding dog. Or somebody who's trying to feign interest. Natural hand gestures are fine, and they can be used as useful reinforcement tools, but avoid the pointing. It comes across as an aggressive gesture, as does a closed fist. Palms upwards conveys openness, but avoid the constant touching of your face and hair. Try to maintain eye contact with an interviewer throughout the interview. If you find this disconcerting, there's a little tip to do here. Concentrate on the tip of their nose or just above their eyebrows so you're not staring them out and freaking them out or freaking yourself out. The way that TV works is nobody will notice that you're not looking them direct in the eye. And don't be thrown if the interviewer seems distracted while you're speaking. It's not because he's not interested, but he's probably likely to be having an exchange with a producer or one of the other members of staff. It's nothing personal. Most importantly, keep your gaze upward. Looking down can indicate uncertainty or low self-esteem. So, whistle-stop tour, as Kevin said before, of what I do and what I'm about, really. I hope some of these tips have been useful. The key thing to remember is to prepare before interviews, to know your stuff, to anticipate the sort of questions you might get, and think about how you'd answer them. Then use the techniques I've just described to speak with confidence and drive home a believable and compelling interview. Now I'll just leave you with the words of Mark Twain, famous American author, who said, "You should start every day by eating a frog, and then the day can only get better." If speaking to the media is your frog, let 2012 be the year you gobble it up and become a consummate media spokesman. I'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for your attention.